Namaste. Welcome to another episode of Navaviva's podcast. So today we are going to read a very special book. The book's name is, as you can see here, the book's name is Indian Strategic Culture, a book by Mr. G.D. Bakshi, who is a well-known military author and general in Indian Army. So today we are going to discuss chapter 9 of this book, a very interesting chapter that we found that should be read. Let me put the PDF here. Okay. So the chapter 9 of this book named A Comparison State of Art of War by Sun Tzu and the Mahabharata. So this specific chapter actually compares the doctrine of war perpetrated by Sun Tzu and the Mahabharata war, which took place in Kurukshetra. So the Mr. G.D. Bakshi is going to compare the military and strategic doctrine of these two specific wars, historic wars, uh, historic war in Mahabharata case, and the doctrine of Sun Tzu in terms of war strategy. So we will be reading the chapters of this specific chapter of this book, and we will also be inviting guests who would come and actually share their opinions with us. So we have here Nandi as well. So yeah, Nandi, would you like to
Namaskar,
say
namaskar.
something? Namaskar, welcome. Nandi, would you be reading today or shall I read?
Yeah, you
You want?
continue reading, Dada. I'll be in the background and
Okay.
I'll be helping you if you have face any
Ah,
difficulties.
got it. Okay. So I will be reading this book, and this book is available here, and I'll also be showing you. Just give me a sec.
Dada, audience are
Yeah,
requesting you to zoom the screen and get rid
I
of the
will.
left, yeah, pages.
I
The
will be
number
doing it.
of pages that is not required.
Yeah. I
So,
will be
welcome
doing this.
everyone. I will highlight some comments for now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'll be zooming. I will be reading it from here itself.
Kritartho Chakrabarti says, interesting topic. Yes, it is very interesting. It
Yes,
should,
and
yeah.
for the audience, we also have a presentation which we have prepared. So we'll be sharing that as well with the audience. So once we read the book, the first few chapters, then we will take questions. And I can see the questions, so not a problem. So thank you, Kidarto. He is our new subscriber. Thank you for subscribing, and I hope you join us for future streams as well. So let's start reading the book, and then we will take questions accordingly. Okay. Before we start the book, let me just show you how you can get this book. Very important part of our daily regime is to show the author's book. In the meantime, audience, if you have anything you want me to do, please put in the chat. I'll try to do this. So here is it. I'll just share the screen once more. So here is the
GD
page.
Bakshi is a very famous. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So here is the page, and let me also. Nandi, could you just paste the URL?
Yeah, I'll paste the URL in the comment and it will be
Hmm.
pinned
Yeah.
for the future
So this is
references.
the yeah, this
Yeah.
is the book, the Indian strategic culture, the Mahabharata and the Kautilyan ways of war. So this book is available in Amazon as well as in Garuda books. But I would suggest go for Garuda books because you will get some good discount there. So it will be also very good for your pockets. So now, and also it is pinned in the chat. So if you guys want to go ahead and buy the book now or later, whenever you want, you can do that. Without any delay, let's go ahead and now read the book. I'll be stop sharing and then I'll go to
Yeah, if you can look at the comment that is pinned. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is just let me know if you can read the text. I'll go ahead and start reading. Audience, all good? Okay. So
Yes.
let's start the reading. So a comparison, state of the art, state of I think war it would mention, state of the art, Sun Tzu and the Mahabharata. Sun Tzu or Sun Zi Bing Fa, The Art of War, is regarded as a classic treatise on the art of war fighting. It is an act of genius, and the precepts contained in its 13 chapters are still considered relevant in this day and age. It was written in a period of great military intellectual ferment in China. In the period of warring kingdoms, in the period of warring kingdoms, 450 to 300 BC, how does the Mahabharata compare as a military treatise with Sun Tzu's classic? Has it expounded any universal? Just hold on, I just to check one. Yeah. How does the Mahabharata compare as a military treatise with Sun Tzu's classic? Has it expounded any universal truism and generalization of war which could guide military thinking in our age? The Mahabharata is a vast and rambling epic when contrasted with Sun Tzu's precise and specialist treatment. Yet, the Mahabharata's military content is of profound interest. It is remarkable in one aspect. It deals with complex combined arms operations. Very interesting. In fact, it deals with intricate and precise details about the conduct of such combined arms formations, maneuvers, and battle drills. The armies described in the Mahabharata are four-limbed Chaturanga Bala. They have four arms: chariots, war elephants, cavalry, and infantry. Very interesting. The Mahabharata spells out precise formation and battle drills we, what is this? Vihos, in which to maneuver these four variable speed maneuver masses on battlefield to maximize attrition. Sun Tzu's epic, The Art of War, deals with single arms operations of the infantry alone. When we consider a new chronology suggested by astronomical software and radiocarbon dating, the Mahabharata at 5100 plus years BP by far predates the Chinese text at some 2300 years. The timeline the timeline comparison would have to be more with the Mauryan military machine at the Chandragupta Maurya, whose legendary national security advisor, Kautilya, can truly be said to be the author of the Indian strategic culture. All three contexts, however, are situations of multipolarity. Academically, the best comparison of state of state of the art of war would be between Kautilya's Arthashastra and Sun Tzu's classic, The Art of War. Just as a number of military schools had sprung up in China in the time of Sun Tzu, so also in the times of Mahabharata, we learn various schools of war propounded by the learned acharyas of that age. Some of the famous ones are Brihaspati, Shukracharya, Parashurama, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, and Bhishma. These sages had propounded their own theories on the rules and practice of warfare. These military intellectuals offered their services, advice to the rulers of the age. Dronacharya, for instance, was appointed royal tutor to the princess of Hastinapur. Parashuram taught Bhishma, Karna, and Dronacharya himself. Incidentally, both Parashuram and Dronacharya were Brahman intellectuals who made a living out of teaching the military arts. I'll pause here and I'm seeing little bit of activity here. Nandi, if you see anything, just let me know. So I'll be reading the book.
Sure, sure, sure.
Okay.
Very interesting though. Like I'll like to comment that in this book and Mahabharata and Arthashastra, both are like very strategy based content. Like more than
Exactly.
just war, even all the political and how you say it, geopolitics techniques and other things are
Hmm.
included. Like not only war, all kinds of wars are included in these epics and legals. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Let me
yeah.
go ahead
Continue
and
reading.
yeah, read the book. The problem in comparison occurs basically due to the dispute about the historicity of the Mahabharata. Does it predate Sun Tzu's classic? If so, by how much? Some Indologists put the age of the Mahabharata at 1400 BC, others put it at as late as 8th century BCE. Recent scientific findings push back the date of the Mahabharata to almost 5,100 years. Sun Tzu belongs to the 4th century BCE. We are, however, certain of the historical details of the contemporary Mauryan army, for these have been corroborated by the account of Megasthenes, the Greek ambassador, Chandragupta Maurya's court, 13th century BC. The Grand Mauryan army comprised almost of six, 6,50,000 men. It was divided into four arms and had 9,000 elephant corps, 8,000 war chariots, 30,000 horse cavalry, and 600,000 infantry. My God, that's a big army, very big army for ancient time. This army was decidedly vastly superior and more sophisticated than the Chinese armies of Sun Tzu's period. It had gone beyond the bronze weaponry and used iron weaponry, and its military technology was well in advance of the Chinese. The Chinese army had just one arm, the foot infantry, divided into special forces and normal foot infantry. The Indian armies of the Mauryan period were highly sophisticated standing armies and had four arms. Okay, so let's discuss this. I think this is something very important that we discuss this. So, in terms of so we see correct in the later periods of our history that Indian armies, or specifically the states, were defeated by the Islamic invasions, later on by the Portuguese, the Dutch, the British. But we see that as per the dating given by G.D. Bakshi, the Indian army was well more advanced than the Chinese army, and it predates 2000 years almost in terms of current carbon dating. So we were a really advanced civilization in terms of technology, in terms of military technology and hardware. So how does it that this fall took place? So audience, uh, okay. So audience, do you have any comments? Like, what do you think? What would have happened that this advanced army with all its technology, and how we Indians were defeated later stages? So what went wrong? So I'll keep that question to ponder to the audience, and then I will be reading. And Nandi, just tell me in something on the comment section that we need to intervene.
Yeah, I'll
It
just
would,
I have some questions that are coming up from the comment
yeah,
section.
yes, yes.
So yeah, so someone called Clutch Films is asking, this have a battle
Hmm.
happened 50,000 years ago?
No, it is
He has a
mentioned five.
question.
No, because the Judy Buxton doesn't mention it, so I can't really answer the question. Because we are talking about
Yeah.
not the battle timing, we are talking about the strategic culture, the military culture,
Yeah.
specifically Sun Tzu's theories, Sun Tzu's treatise on military, and also on Arthashastra. So that is
Mhm.
the topic of our chapter today and also discussion. There are some chapters in this book where we see some kind of discussion on this, but not in this chapter. So currently we are only
Mm-hmm.
discussing about the military strategic similarities and dissimilarities between Sun
Mm-hmm.
Tzu and Kautilya's war strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So yeah,
so that will,
uh, so he's saying even though it is more accurate to compare Arthashastra to Shanzu,
mm-hmm,
uh,
mm-hmm.
so but he's still going on with Mahabharata
We will read the book. See,
because it's
we
yeah,
are
yeah, no,
correct,
no,
correct.
in the
I can
second
understand.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the datings. Okay, so datings we will do read it. Let's read the book first. It's a very interesting. I also like to read the book first. So let me just read the book and then give your comments. We'll certainly take the comments when appropriate.
Yeah.
It would, therefore, be historically more accurate to compare Kautilya's Arthashastra with Sun Tzu's classic Kautilya's classical. Arthashastra was composed in a similar period of warring kingdoms. Very interesting that the Sun Tzu's Art of War and Kautilya's Arthashastra were composed in a similar circumstances where wars were taking place. And so, correct, the environment that we are in a very important, and also the circumstances that what we write and how we write. In the post-epic, post-Mahabharatan period,
Can you
India had,
zoom it a little bit more? We cannot see the screen.
okay,
Yeah, thank you.
is it better? Yeah,
A little bit more.
okay. Is it better?
Yeah, at least keep it in 100. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's better.
Shall I do it one more?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
One more
Uh,
is needed. Yeah.
correct. Okay. So India had witnessed the rise of 16 Mahajanapadas. I think the Mahajanapadas are like city states within the Indian subcontinent which were there. So you had Magad, you had Patliputra Magad was there. The current day Patna is there. So there are many like this. Or regional states that were constantly at war with one another. India then was more analogous to a European continent, and Kautilya's brilliant treatise on strategy and statecraft was distilled in this turbulent period. The two classics of India and China thus developed from remarkably similar historical settings. Both had a middle kingdom, Madhya Desha, that tried to unite all under heaven. One of the issues of age and antiquity, the Indian tradition very definitely places the Mahabharata almost 1,000 years before the Mauryan age. If that is indeed accurate, it represents a major advance over the Chinese in civilizational terms. Let us, therefore, carry out a detailed and comparative analysis of the military wisdom of the Mahabharata and Sun Tzu's classic, The Art of War. Okay, so as per the author, the Mahabharata dates at least 1,000 years prior to the Kautilyan treaties. So, author is now trying to, because if the Mahabharata war had four-limbed approach, it means that the war technology was far more advanced or as advanced as at the Kautilyan times. So that's why he is comparing Sun Tzu's Art of War to Mahabharata. So that gets the question. Sun Tzu's classic. Sun Tzu's classic. The Sun Tzu's Art of War has a place in the sun. The famous Chinese military theorist writings have served to inspire no less than modern military thinkers than the Sir Basil Liddell, Sir Cecil Battle Hart, and the great Mao Zedong. Liddell, Little Hart says that the seeds of the indirect approach were planted in his mind by the Sun Tzu and T.E. Lawrence. The most quoted verse from the chapter 4 of Sun Tzu's classic, The Art of War, as water shapes, the art of war, as water shapes its flow in accordance with the ground, So an army manages its victory in accordance with the situations of the enemy. Thus, along with the deep penetration campaigns of the Mongols under the Genghis Khan, served as the basis of the expanding torrent. So we're going to learn a lot about the military terms that are used in terms of strategic warfare. So we will expound them later because I also don't know a lot of them. So audience also, if you can want, we will talk about them in our post reading session talk. expanding expanding torrent concept concept of armored warfare, which was used so devastatingly by the Germans in the Second World War and Israelis recently in 1956 and 1967. As we can see, the art of war, the concept of strategic warfare is something which is a everlasting treatise on military strategy, which is being used till today. So this shows you how important the doctrine is in terms of warfare. Historical background: 25 years after the death of Confucius, 429 BCE, the leaders of Wei, Han, and Chao states of China attacked the rulers of Xi'an and defeated him at Qiangyang in 453 BCE. With this began the period of the warring states, 450 to 300 BCE. There was incessant fighting between the six major states of China: Qi, Chu, and Xi'an, Wei, Han, and Chao. So we have one, two, three, six warring clans or warring states. This turmoil lasted for 150 years. Bands of bandits infested the forested hills and reed bordered, reed bordered lakes and terrorized the people. The political environment gave ample opportunity to self-styled military experts and scholars who wandered from one state to the other to peddle their ideas and theories to the kings and dukes. Sun Tzu was one of these theorists. Okay, very interesting. So, in this warring times, so there were a lot of military theorists who were actually giving advice, giving their own theories on how to fight wars, and Sun Tzu was one of them. So now we know that okay, there may have been another also experts, other people who were giving advice how to fight wars, how to win wars. Sun Tzu was one of these theorists, and the art of war was composed in this period of intellectual ferment, development of iron technology in China. Iron was
Okay,
known
brother,
in,
can we
yeah,
just stop there for 1 minute? So
yeah,
as
yeah,
we
go
can
ahead.
see, there were not a single state of China even back in the day. There were six different factions or regions that you can see that are warring in between themselves. So Shin,
Yeah, see,
the word comes from the Middle Earth, the yeah,
yeah, Middle Kingdom.
Middle Kingdom. So yeah, I and like if you actually see, anytime
Mm-hmm,
a very big war comes in, that leads
mm-hmm,
to very for that era, technological
mm-hmm.
advancement will be very fast because of the war. Because a necessity of the new technology is there when there is conflict.
Yes, I think you are right. But see, the new military technologies are developed when war happens. That's quite natural for thing to happen. But it may not be always the case. Okay. So some cultures, like let's say Rome or
Mhm,
Sparta, they have their like their lives are built on warfare. Okay. So they might be also like inventing new things
mhm,
just because war is part of the culture. So there are two things which are important here. There are some places on earth, like you had Rome and other places, okay, where warfare is part of the culture itself. In India, it is not.
mhm,
Warfare is not part of culture. But wherever you have warfare as part of culture, like let's say Afghanistan, for that an instance,
mhm,
okay, where warfare is part of culture, you will see. that even in peacetime they will be having like a lot of weapons being created, being invented, just because it's part of the culture. So that's something we need to remember. Yeah, but it's very important that that is that okay. The major military technology development will take place when there is a war happening, and it's a continuous warfare. So it's important that we have a continuous warfare for 100 years or 200 years. At that time, you will see major development in military arms, military strategy, books being written about it. So that is very important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also, we also have
Like,
one more
is
PPT.
there any map of all
Mm-hmm.
the he mentioned all the like map of China with all the regions that he mentioned? Is there any map in the book?
No, because this book is
Okay.
a kind of a like a theoretical book, not something. Okay, but we have something. Let me just show. So we had this PPT that we had developed. Okay,
Uh-huh.
Introduction to Military
Okay.
Comparisons. Okay, so this
Sure, sure,
we
sure.
had created for the audience to actually just give little bit of. So audience, can you see the text, because we may not be able to zoom it properly, but if you can
Yes,
read
yes,
it,
it's
just let
very
me know.
much visible.
Oh, visible, correct. So military treaties, comparative analysis of military treaties. So strategic philosophy. Okay. So we will get, so there are a lot of military terms are there which are quite actually difficult for people to understand. So that's why we created the PPT to understand the concept itself. So Sun Tzu's Art of War versus Mahabharata. Strategic philosophy. Sun Tzu emphasizes deception and indirect methods in warfare. Nandi, what does it
Mm-hmm.
sound?
Mm-hmm.
What does it sound like, audience? Sun Tzu emphasizes deception and indirect methods in warfare.
Guerrilla warfare kind of things. Maya Yuddha.
Yeah, guerrilla warfare. Okay. Or
Yeah,
in terms of military, it's called unconventional warfare.
yeah, yeah.
The Mahabharata discusses the moral and ethical dilemmas of war. Very interesting. See, the Mahabharata war took place at least as per current dating methods 2000 prior to Sun Tzu writing it.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be, and Sun Tzu is only talking about the infantry, special forces, and conventional forces. But the Mahabharata war has four arms and four speeds of
Mm-hmm.
weapons. So you have infantry, you have a rath, you have elephants. Okay. So you have these
I have
four arms.
cavalry.
Yeah, you have cavalry. So you have four arms of warfare. There's a complete warfare taking place. So in terms of content of Sun Tzu and content of Mahabharata would be different. So although we are in a sense comparing apples and oranges, but as a military doctrine we can compare them, how they stand out. So there, so in the first strategic philosophy, we see that Sun Tzu is talking about only one arm, that is infantry warfare. And in infantry warfare, you have general infantry fighting out, and also special forces who are fighting a guerrilla warfare. Nature of war. War is an inevitable aspect of life according to Sun Tzu. Very important,
Mm-hmm.
very important. As I mentioned earlier, in the say Sun Tzu was born at a time when he only saw war, nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
So to him, war is part of life and inevitable. It had to happen because he is looking at the smaller window of time when he is writing this book or this treatise. The Mahabharata portrays war as a cosmic duty and a means of achieving dharma. That's really, really
Mm-hmm.
profound in terms of understanding. So the dharma, which can be anything. So see, dharma means duty. Okay, in our
Mm-hmm.
ancient ways. So our duty includes fighting against adharma. So if you have to fight adharma and you have to fight a war, you have to fight it. So this what we say, a binary that is seen, the binary of Sun Tzu's war treatise, where there is war, nowhere. But in Mahabharata, it's a bit of approach of cyclical approach, where
Mm-hmm.
as part of your duty to perform, you are fighting a war just because it's part of your duty. It is not obligatory. If there is a requirement to fight adharma, you to or to defend dharma, you are fighting a war, go ahead and fight it. Leadership attributes. Sun Tzu highlights the importance of a wise and adaptable leader. Very important. The Mahabharata illustrates various leadership styles through characters like Arjuna and Krishna. Audience, if you have any comments on this, please do share on the chat. If you have any questions, please post them. We will take them at the end of the day. Nandi, just put
Uh-huh.
them in a category if you find something. Okay, we'll be
Sure, sure.
taking them.
So
Preparation and
I
planning.
have so
Go ahead, go ahead, go
what
ahead.
I would like to comment is about art of war
Mm-hmm.
is more for a general of an army, but Mahabharata and Arthashastra are for kings, uh, because they need to be present in both peace and war situations. But art of war, when it comes to it, it's mostly about war.
I don't agree with totally. Okay, one more thing. Nandi, paste our URL link, StreamYard link. If audience, if you
Mhm.
want to come and join and
Yes,
discuss this,
yes. If anyone.
please join us for a discussion. We would happy to hear your opinions and thoughts. So we like to
Yeah,
make
I'll
it
just post it in
interactive.
the comments.
Yeah,
If
post
anyone
it.
wants to just join us and want to talk to us and wants to
Yeah,
read with us, you're more than
yeah,
welcome.
yeah. Okay, so you mentioned this one, correct? That it's for kings.
Hmm.
See, uh, when we are talking about like it is for kings, warfare is part of statecraft. So if you
Hmm.
see in the modern context, the monopoly of violence is with the state or the administration. Okay,
Hmm.
or the country, correct? The country. So monopoly of violence is with the country, so that only a legitimate state can actually perpetrate violence to actually preserve its boundaries, preserve its territories, and also to safeguard peace. It's very important that violence is permitted to safeguard peace and people's life, people's wealth,
Hmm.
not because you want to expand territory. And in terms of Sun Tzu, he is talking about warfare as something which is like, how do I frame it? Sun Tzu is thinking warfare as eat, sleep, and drink. Sun Tzu says it is
Hmm.
inevitable. Okay, so it is
Hmm.
like something that I had to do. We have to all fight the war, and let's just have a treatise how to win the war. So
Hmm.
there is a thinking perspective which is very different. For us, Mahabharata, it is part of our obligation and duty to fight a war. For Sun Tzu, it is part of life itself. It doesn't really matter what will happen, war will happen, and I will do it. So there is a little. It's not like kings or anything else. It is like part of life, and for us, war is part of our duty, one of the duties, not the only duty.
Hmm. So the main part of the Mahabharata is that all the warring parties are mostly relatives. My question to you, like if you know
Hmm.
about it, my question to you
Hmm.
is if the time that Sun Tzu was alive, were all the
Hmm.
kingdoms that were around, were they relatives or just non-related or royalties?
Okay. See, you need to understand that the current Chinese state is dominated by Han Chinese.
Hmm.
Okay. So the current Chinese population, the demographics, I think they are about 90% something are actually Han Chinese. That was
Hmm.
not the case in ancient time. So you had a lot of tribes. So you have Shi, you have Jian. So these tribes are
Hmm.
not like they are not all Han Chinese. So they might have been related, but they did not identify as Han. So this concept of Han
So
Chinese, Han
they were
dominance
all
is
from
a
different tribes.
different tribes. Even if they were Han Chinese, they did not identify as Han. To remember
Hmm.
that the current Chinese identity of Han Chinese identity as the primary Chinese identity. It was not there in ancient times. Currently, the Chinese government or the Chinese state actually talks about Han Chinese culture and identity is equivalent to Chinese identity. In
mhm,
in ancient times, there was no such identity where they identified as one China. So this one China policy
mhm,
and one country, one culture is an invention of the Chinese government. It doesn't exist in ancient history because if you
mhm,
read the text, it doesn't exist anywhere.
mhm,
So as in India, you had 16 Janapadas. You had warring states in China who were fighting each other constantly. And the same way, Kautilya wrote Arthashastra to actually how to fight a war, and same way Sun Tzu wrote a book, his treatise, how to fight a war.
mhm. I would
Okay,
disagree in
so
some points where
okay,
Arthashastra is more about how to the entire manual of how to run a state rather than just external wars. Yeah.
I agree with you. I agree with because right now we are only talking about the military
War.
strategic
Okay.
fair. So that's why I mentioned Arthashastra. But
Mhm.
as I agree with you that
Uh,
Arthashastra
I
is
have
the manual
another
of.
question.
Go ahead.
Does Art of War mention about diplomatic treaties anywhere, or is it just only military strategy?
Can you just come again?
Yeah. So, is Art of War contain anything about diplomatic treaties and agreements like Arthashastra does, or is it
No,
only about war strategies?
no. I don't
Okay.
think it talks about diplomacy as such. Okay, it's a basically
Because
war fighting,
uh
war strategy thing. But I need to check. I
because
am not read the full text, so I can't
since
tell you exactly.
what we know about the mandala strategy of in
Mm-hmm.
Arthashastra to
Mm-hmm.
designate some enemies or friends as different mandalas in a sphere things, so that you will know whom to like the enemy of my enemy is a friend, that kind of thing. Is there anything similar, like if you know, in the book of Art of War, or is it? Yeah.
I haven't read the full book, so I am just reading the
Uh-huh.
chapters which are there. But if I
Okay.
come across, I will certainly be doing this.
I might have a book. I'll share later. You continue. Yeah.
Yes, let me just check if the camera is working fine. Yeah. Okay, so we'll read the last part. Okay. Preparation and planning. Thorough preparation is essential as stated by Sun Tzu. The Mahabharata emphasizes the role of diving divine guidance in planning battles. Very interesting. Divine guidance. So the
Mm-hmm.
concept of dharma, devdas, kuladevta, and the cosmic energy or the cosmic god is something which is part of our dharma itself. So even like we invoke God in whatever we do, whether we study, whether we are building a house, whether we are getting married, okay, whether something new happens, even bad and good things, we will be invoke God's blessings on us. That culture did not exist in China at that time. So it was like a
Mm-hmm.
secular culture in a way, you can say, not a dharmic culture. So because it's part of our dharma itself. Okay, so now moral implications. Sun Tzu focuses on achieving victory with minimal conflict. The Mahabharata explores the complex moral implications of war and its consequences. Really, really interesting. So Sun Tzu talks
Mm-hmm.
about winning the war as the primary objective. We have to win a war
Mm-hmm.
with minimal loss or minimal conflict. But the Mahabharata is talking about the war, moral implications of war, and its consequences. What would happen? So if you see right now, when we have wars, correct? So you will see
Mm-hmm.
people and leaders come and say, okay, we should not fight because women, children, families, businesses, economies get destroyed by war. So
Mm-hmm.
this consequence of war is very important. And about now, the Mahabharata war took place 5100 BCE. So it is almost 5,000 years, or you can plus
Mm-hmm.
add it more, 7,000 if you put it the dating. I'm not sure the dating exactly works, but let's say even 5,000 years ago, we were so advanced in terms of civilizational, intellectual, and also humanly. Sir, we are talking about,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what is the concept of wars? How the war will affect uh, our culture, our history, our people.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go to, okay, guys, do you want to continue the slides or go to reading? I'll do whatever you feel like. Do you want me to continue the slides?
I think so. I think you
Okay,
should consider reading. Then we will come back to
okay,
the presentation again.
okay. Let's now read it. Okay, I need to again reshare my screen. Hold on.
So I have a interesting snippet for the meanwhile. So there is
Mm-hmm.
a like in chapter 12 in the scroll of attacking with fire in Shunsu's book, there is actually
Mm-hmm.
astrology mentioned about on the days where to when to set fire on enemies
Yes, yes,
because
yes.
the
See,
windy
Chinese.
days will help you. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. See, what happens is that it's actually it's not it's actually astronomy, not astrology,
Okay.
because
Okay.
astrology. So the astrology is based on astronomical uh, principles,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to know when the moon phase will change, how will be
Mm-hmm.
the circumstances in terms of weather, in terms of wind conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So it is actually now it is astronomy, not astrology, because they were able to
Mm-hmm.
predict the weather,
Yeah.
okay, and the conditions of that specific area by calculating the moon and sun phases. Because as we all know, sun is the
Mm-hmm.
primary
Mm-hmm.
energy source, and sun
Mm-hmm.
energy actually affects our environment from our food to our oxygen. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we'll read the book.
Sure.
So I'll start reading now.
Yeah.
Development of iron technology in China. Iron was known in China by about 500 BCE, but it was only by 400 BCE that many Chinese states had flourishing iron industry to cater to arms and implements. Important, as Nandi mentioned, that when the warfare is taking place, you will have military technology, military arms technology being created, invented, improved upon. So the iron was there, but they were not creating arms. Arms were arms of iron were invented and manufactured only when the war were taking place continuously over time of period. The Mauryans had similarly affected the switch from bronze to iron technology for their weaponry, military invention. In, in the Indian epic period, we encounter a mix of both iron and bronze weapon technologies. Reorganization of armies. For the first time in China, armies were reorganized from local levy system into a sub-unit basis.
Mm-hmm.
Heredit- Hereditary kings and feudal lords were replaced by professional officers and generals. Very important. When there is a long-term warfare going on, you need skilled, knowledgeable, and people who would be having experience in fighting wars. So a ragtag army of people who are not trained as per military doctrines will not win you wars. So in long-term warfare situation where wars are going on for 100 years, you would have to create a professional, well-trained, and standing armies, which are permanent armies. And as we know in our historical readings, that the taxation system, the taxes that we see today, were actually implemented to actually maintain and grow armies. The theory and practice of war were studied, and the old rivalry gave place to overwhelming emphasis on surprise and deception. Very important, surprise and deception. Regular standing armies with cohesive organizations and excellent logistical backup came into being. Recruitment was by conscription of peasants, and officers were full-time professionals. The armies were led by specially selected shock troops. Very important word, a military term called shock troops. They basically mean actually special forces. Okay, in today's terms, elements of elements of armies were capable of coordinated maneuver in accordance with detailed plans and were responsive to systematic signals by bells. Guys, anybody know what is signals by bells? Signals by bells, gongs, drums, and flags. The science of
Mm.
the science of
Mhm.
tactics
So,
was born. Yes.
what I know is about medieval wars and all, because when you are
Mm-hmm.
in out and about in a field, a
Mm-hmm.
commander cannot just say like for follow this. He cannot give orders through his mouth. So he
Mm-hmm.
has usually the commander will give certain
Mm-hmm.
annotations to certain number of rings like the bells
Mm-hmm.
or gongs, and he will like for say like one bell means attack, two bell means fall back. So that kind of signaling like that used to take place, and that's why even today most of the professional armies have bands like therefore to signify that.
So actually, in current they are called ASC,
Yes, yes,
Army Signals Corps. They are called ASC. So
yes.
you will see ASC cantonments. Okay,
Hmm.
in like you will have a Eastern ASC cantonment. You will have Western ASC cantonment.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in terms of military strategy, communication is one of the pillars where the military strategy actually works. So, example, uh, we are so correct in the Kargil war. In the Kargil war, when that war was taking place, before the troops went and to fight the war, there were signals corps who would go and lay the fiber optic cable.
Hmm.
Yeah, we have one guest. Abhay, just wait. I will put you in. Okay. So we had people before the war fighting took place. We had like military branches, specialized people who would lay the cable and communications lines. You cannot fight a war without a clear line of communication being established, and they have to be maintained.
Hmm.
So so like people will say, okay, we
So.
have tanks and other things, but this communication lines
Mhm.
are the most important part of any army, which needs to be there. Yeah, Abhay, you can speak. Go ahead, unmute yourself.
Okay, till Abhay comes on, yeah, he
Namaskar.
can, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Abhay, bolo.
Namaskar.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah,
Abhay, we can hear
Namaskar
you.
Dada, Namaskar Nandi. Yeah,
Namaskar.
yeah,
uh,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think the voice is delayed or something. Um. Anyway, so yeah, the concept of this book is quite interesting. I found it interesting. The major difference that I see between this book and Mahabharata is that I think Sanzu, sorry, Art of War is basically based on war strategy. For example, how to fight a war, while Mahabharata or especially Bhagavad Gita, if we compare that with what is happening on the battlefield, uh, it's more, it's also focused on moral implications of war, or what the moral dilemma of the person who's fighting the war is. I think that's the biggest difference. Here in Art of War, it's more mechanical, that this what you do. It's it take it talks less about the moral aspect of the war, while in
Okay.
Mahabharata it's more related to the moral issues
Mm,
concerning the
okay.
war.
Correct.
It
Okay.
seems
So
like.
the yeah, understood, understood. So let me just expand a little bit more. So Sun Tzu's Art of War is a pure military strategy. So Sun Tzu's Art of War is pure military strategy book. It doesn't talk about any moral value. It doesn't talk about what would happen after the war, how many people will die. So, in terms of academic terms, it's a strategy book on how to win wars. Plain, full stop. But in terms of Mahabharata, it deals into all the aspects of war, how to fight a war, how to fight a war morally, and also the implication of war itself. So you had Sri Krishna, okay, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, doing a diplomacy before the war actually took place. So Sri Krishna went there to actually as the emissary of Pandavas to actually go and talk to the Kauravas that okay, let's find a diplomatic solution to the problems that we have and find it out. At the as the last resort, the war took place. But for Sun Tzu, war is inevitable. It will be there. So just find the best strategy to win the war. So that is the primary difference between these two.
I
Abhay?
have just one question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I have just one question. Why do you think that these two texts are being compared? What could be the possible reason to compare these two texts?
Okay. So as we are reading the chapter 9 of the book, Indian Military, Indian Strategic Culture, the author mentions that although the Sun Tzu's Art of War and Mahabharata have a gap of 2000 years in terms of when they are written. Okay. But in terms of context, they both have something to do with warfare. Although the timelines are very different, but it talks about warfare. Warfare in terms of, for Mahabharata, the dharmic way of fighting a war is consequences. And for Sun Tzu, warfare is part of life, and let's learn how to win the war most efficiently possible. So because these two events are divided by 2000 years of gap, still they talk about war as a primary objective of winning a war or how to fight a war. I think for that reason the author is doing this comparison. Abhay?
Okay, got it.
Hmm.
Okay, so the
Okay.
context is similar, though there was a difference of time.
Mm-hmm.
But because the context was similar, so the author is comparing. But I don't think Art of War talks about the politics which preceded the Mahabharat war. Like, like in Mahabharata, the war is preceded by a whole lot of diplomacy and politics and all the issues that lead
Abhay, your voice is cracking. Your voice is cracking. We're not able to hear you. Abhay, are you able to hear us? I think there is some connection issue with
Yeah,
Abhay. So
yeah.
Yeah, we'll put
So
Abhay on
my
backstage. Yeah, go ahead, Nandi.
yeah,
To the
Go ahead.
war.
my
Art
comment,
of war,
yeah,
I don't.
Yeah, Abhay,
now
you are
we can
speaking
hear
because
us.
your voice is delayed actually. Anyway, Nandi, go ahead. Nandi, go ahead. Abhay will fix his voice.
Okay, so my comment about this would be Mahabharata is a very long epic. When you consider it, it's
100,000
for,
verses, more than.
14 times the size of Iliad and Odyssey combined together,
Mm.
and almost 5 to 6 times longer than the entire Bible, if you consider it. So, like when you consider such a long book, a military strategy would be a very it is also including the military strategy aside, but there is also politics and other things included in it. But when you consider art of war, it's just 13 scrolls combined together. It's a
So correct.
scroll if you think
As I
about it.
mentioned,
Hmm.
the author is comparing Sun Tzu's Art of War as a military treatise. Okay, and
Hmm.
for Mahabharata, it is only the author is only comparing the 18 days of war which took place in
Yeah,
Kurukshetra. So author is
and we are
not
also
comparing
forgetting.
Mahabharata as a
Yeah,
correct. Go ahead.
Mahabharata is a poetry as such. It's also a poetry. It's written as a poetry. So
Kavya, Kavya.
only the 18, yeah, yeah, kavya. It's a kavya. But
Hmm.
this, what is called the art of war is a
Hmm.
series of scrolls that were written, yeah, to document and to strategize military tactics. That's all. Nothing else. Nothing more. Nothing less. It doesn't even mention more than or less than that.
Because as the author mentions that when these six
Hmm.
states, the Middle Kingdom. So
Hmm.
what we say today is the Middle Kingdom syndrome. Okay, or Middle China, where we had six warring states in China fighting with each other, and at that time, because war was a constant affair, a constant affair of life, there were a lot of like military strategies who would go to one warring state, say, okay, I have a strategy how you can win the war. So there were
Hmm.
like maybe hundreds of people like Sun Tzu who were giving advice, giving strategies to the kings, to the warring states kings, to actually how to win a war. So Sun Tzu was one of the people of hundreds, maybe hundreds or tens, who were doing this thing. So only his strategy had survived, and we are knowing today.
Okay.
So there may have been maybe tens and people doing the same thing as we read in the book,
Mm-hmm.
correct? When we reading it, it mentions that there are like multiple people who are doing this
Hmm.
thing. So when we only know about Sun Tzu, there might have been people
Yeah.
who were more brilliant than Sun Tzu, but his writing did not survive for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay, we have
Abhay,
a
yeah,
question.
you were, yeah.
Yeah, Abhay, you want to
Abhay
say
was
something? Go
saying,
ahead.
yeah.
Yeah, Abhay, go ahead.
No, I think uh, you have explained the issue pretty well. So I don't have much to say. I think we can continue.
Yeah. Okay. Before we continue, so I would like to share that if you see today the Nataraj, it's a digital, hand-drawn digital painting, okay, of Nataraj. So this is something which will be available from Navavimar's platform very soon. So we are now just checking how we can actually deliver this to you. So if anybody who is watching this, if you want to collect this collectible item from Navavimar's platform, this will also contain a book which will explain the significance of Nataraj in terms of symbolic significance, the creation and the destruction stories of it. So the package will contain this painting. It will come in various colors, which we will be unveiling in coming weeks. It will also contain the book. So if anybody wants to collect this one, do send us an email, because once we receive enough interest, we will go ahead and create create the copies of it, and that will be delivered to later stage, because it's a hand drawn painting. So it might take time for us to actually get the artist to draw and then print it, color it, then ship it. So if you want to avail this, please send an email to us. We will share the pricing and other details in coming weeks. So that's it we
Uh,
wanted to know.
we have also shared the QR code on the screen. If you just scan it, it'll go to the Google Forms.
Yeah, and you can share your data there. So we will get back to you with your interest. And in coming weeks, we will be going to unveil multiple colors and also a few other digital paintings, which will be hand drawn by the artist. So we'll also bring the artist into our program itself. In coming weeks, we'll also have the artist coming to show how he draws the paintings for us. So it's an exclusive arrangement we have with the artist. Thank you. We'll go back to reading.
Dada, like when you will you present the presentation later in the live stream, or yeah?
I can do it. Or maybe we see, because this presentation is there, so we can do it even in part two as well, because we
Okay,
will read the book for coming
okay,
time.
okay.
If
Sure, sure,
somebody wants to
sure.
do the presentation now, I can do that, or we'll just finish the reading and do it. Okay,
We'll
let's do
finish
the
the
reading.
reading and do it.
Yeah, it's very interesting
Yeah.
to talk about it. Okay, so let's start from here. Coordinated maneuver in accordance with the detailed plans and were responsive to systematic signals by bells, gongs, drums, and flags. So we see flag as a method of signaling. So green flag, white flag. So they have a meaning in terms of wars. The science of tactics was born. Shi and Cheng forces. This is a special characteristic of Chinese military system. Shi and Cheng. Cheng forces were the regular orthodox armies, conventional armies, which were employed for the holding and fixing effort. Shi forces were the special or elite elements used for speedy maneuver and shock actions to catch the enemy in the rear or deep flanks. So when we say like shock troops, so shock troops are comes from this special forces. General staff. The concept of general staff also emerged in this period. Staffs included numerous specialists like map makers and weather forecasters, engineers for tunneling and river crossing experts. Science of logistics were developed. Special attention was paid to morale, feeding of troops, system of reward and punishment, etc. Very important, morale. So, what do you mean by morale in terms of military jargon or in common terms? Nandi, anything, audience?
Ethics, ethics of war.
What do you mean by morale?
I think the
The
will to fight.
Okay, Abhay, go ahead.
moral.
I think it's about the will to fight, whether you are willing to fight the war or not. If you have
Okay,
if you are motivated enough to go and fight the war.
and
Otherwise,
how
if you have
to
lost your morale,
correct?
you
But
will
how
not
do
be able
you
to fight in
enable
the
that?
battle.
How do you enable that? How do you impact that? How do you impact the
Uh,
morale or their willingness to fight?
I think the leadership matters. The leader needs to be brave and needs to lead the troops. The troops need to feel that the leader is. Uh, I think it has
Hmm.
to do with the confidence of the leader and also with the dedication of the leader in that ward. That is, if the leader is dedicated to that ward, they also feel that yeah, we can also contribute something to the cause.
Nandi?
I so to boost the morale of the warriors or soldiers. So there were
Hmm.
special attention, like feeding the troops on time, or
Mm-hmm.
giving, like, there would be entertainment system of sorts, or reward for bravery that's been done, or punishments for wrongs that are doing, like, for being lazy. So that would boost the will of soldiers to keep on fighting, because that would be a big issue in a long war. If it's a battle, it's said and done. But if it's a long war that goes on for months, or if you're sieging a fort or something, so you need to keep the morale of the soldiers alive for a long time. And that's not an easy task without a proper logistics in place.
Do you think the family members of the soldiers were also taken care of in
Okay,
such?
hold on. Uh, Abhay and Andy both. See,
Mhm.
you have to understand that prior to Sun Tzu writing this treatise on how to fight a war, the art of war, the author mentions that war was not a professional kind of approach which had, because you had wars for some period, then people will go and not fight wars. Right? So whenever you have a continuous war fighting going on between, so in the middle period we had six states of China fighting war continuously with each other over a sustained period of time. Only then this moral things comes in, because previously you would give money to anybody and come and fight a war, because that war would be short war, you don't need a lot of skills. People would, you would pay money, people would come, they will fight the war, then the war is ends, everybody goes home. So there was no sustained warfare happening. This technical, this specific organized war machinery was required when you are fighting a sustained long term war. And in long term war, human psychology is such like that, that if we are sustained, if we are confronting stress, if we are seeing people dying, if you are seeing your colleagues being dead, or they are having their limbs amputated, they are dying blood. So in those scenarios, the human psychology will break down. So here the morale primarily means how to psychologically uh, make them positive to win the war, to fight the war. So it is about psychology, which is very important. So in war, you say, when say propaganda. So in war, you had propaganda done by every warring parties. They will say, we will win the war. We are just about to win the war. Okay. And people will lie about it. The other side will say, we have won the war. We have done this. We have done that. So here so in a long sustained war, the morale is very important. It's one of the factors which will decide whether you win a war or will you lose a war. If your soldiers are motivated to fight till they win the war, you will win the war. But if your soldiers are not motivated to fight, you will lose no matter how many troops you have. So we have
Mhm.
seen in multiple wars that happened, that morale of the soldiers, the people who are fighting the war, is one of the most critical criteria which will decide how you win a war, or whether you will win a war. Let's go ahead and reading. Okay. So state of the art. Thus, by 4th century BC, war in China had achieved a mature form, sustained constant warfare, mature form, a form which indeed was not, except for the employment of cavalry, to be significantly altered for many hundreds of years. Thus, though the Chinese possessed weapons of iron and were masters of offensive and defensive tactics, conventional war, unconventional wars. So you have offensive and defensive tactics. They were predominantly an infantry or one arm army, infantry only. Sun Tzu is well known for his insistence upon surprise and deception, guerrilla warfare. Thus, make an uproar in the east, strike in the west, surprise and deception. So you had general troops, normal troops, make an uproar in the east. Send your general troops in the east, and then you send your special forces in the west to actually give a surprise to those troops which are there in the west. And that's why you say uproar, like surprise and deception. You are sending your normal troops to the east to tell the enemy that we are going to fight a war in the east, but we have also sent your special forces in the west, and they will be not prepared for a war. Surprise. The thunderclap leaves no time. The thunderclap, the special forces which are going in the west, leaves no time to cover the ears. Chapter 1.25, or all warfare is based upon deception. Chapter 1, verse 7, speak for themselves. Use of indirect approach. As water has no constant form, there is in war no constant conditions. Chapter 6:29. The the army is like water. Okay, an army is like water. Analogy has already been quoted. Chapter 6, verse 28. Speed is the essence of war. So when we see, correct, in the later uh, later stages of Indian civilization, where we had the Arabs and the Mongols of the from the plains of Caucasus, the West Asian steppes. So the Arabs and the Mongols came on horses, and we had elephants. Speed is very important in terms of winning a war. Analogy has already been quoted. Speed is the essence of war. Chapter 11:29. Go into emptiness, strike voids, bypass what he defends, hit him where he does not expect you to. Surprise. Concept of supreme excellence. To capture the enemy army, to capture the enemy army is better than to destroy it. Chapter 2, 1.2. For to win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acumen of the skill and supreme excellence. Chapter 2, 1.3. The supreme excellence in war is to attack the enemy's plans. So this is how why the author is discussing this, because as mentioned earlier, this is a war strategy book. This tells you how to win a war. It does not take into account the morals of the war, how the war is going to affect the people, the state, the economy. It is just a pure theory on how to win a war. Target target mind of enemy commander. Anger anger is his general. Confuse him. Okay. Target mind of the enemy commander. Anger. Anger is his general. Confuse him. Chapter 1.22. The responsibility for a martial host of a million lies in one man. Okay. The responsibility for a martial host of a million lies in one man. Leadership is very important in winning a war. If you have a capable leader who can have enough skills, plans to actually design a warfare technique and can bolster the morale of the troops, the leader is the primary thing on that. To a surrounded enemy, you must leave a way to escape. Very important. Show him there is a road to safety and to create an idea in his mind that there is an alternative to death. Then strike. Surprise and strike. Uh, Andy,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, do we have
So
any
he's
comments?
telling the mind how to, like, target the mindset of an enemy commander, like, how to ideologically support and how to exert dominance and how to how to. It's some mind games. He's trying to
See, it
like.
is called in current terms psyops,
Mm-hmm.
psychological warfare.
Psyops, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's called psyops.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, correct. So this when you
Yeah.
see this new war methods, you see that
Mm-hmm.
armies are actually using the theories, the methods proposed by Sun Tzu 1,000 years, 2,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
let's read, let's finish this chapter and then we will see.
Yeah.
There are some of the highlights of the 13 chapters, as Nandi mentioned, 13 chapters of the art of war. The Chinese military items appear more graphic and telling, but it professional. But okay, hold on. But it must be borne in the mind that the art of war was more or less a professional training manual, whereas the Mahabharata was a wide-ranging epic of encyclopedic proportions. Nandi, you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you could say it's an encyclopedia of human history of that time.
Okay, Abhay has left, or okay, I think
No, he has muted himself, I guess. Yeah.
okay. Will Rishi has jumped. Okay, Rishi, hello. Rishi, you would like to say
Mm-hmm.
something? Rishi, you do need to unmute yourself, or we'll still be reading. So if you want to say something, do unmute yourself. Okay, let's read it. Comparison. Comparison, state of art. Antiquity. The Mahabharata at 5001 year, 5100 years, or 1400 BC predates Sun Tzu by well over 1000 years. Weapons technology. Iron was reportedly used 1,000 years in advance. Okay, so he mentioned iron was reportedly used 1,000 years in advance of China. So we can see, correct, how advanced the technology, what technology we had in ancient times. That we were using iron 1,000 years before Chinese were doing this. All arms, all arms team concept. There were four basic arms in the Mahabharata armies: the chariots, the elephants, the cavalry, and infantry. Sun Tzu's magnum opus seems to deal only with infantry operations. Insistence on indirect approach. This is a lot in common with Kuta Yuddha, methodology. So we say Kutniti, diplomacy. So Kutniti in Hindi, we say Kutniti means diplomacy. So we say Kuta Yuddha methodology as propagated by Krishna. So if you guys remember that our current EA Mr. S. Shankar, he considers Krishna as the best diplomat in this world and the most ancient one. So here is also Mr. G.D. Bakshi is saying that Kuta Yuddha methodology as propagated by Krishna, Ashwathama, Brihaspati, and Shukracharya in India. Target. Uh, okay, we have Abhay. You want to say something about it?
No, I don't have much to say here. You can continue.
Okay, no problem. So you can unmute, you can mute yourself. And Rishi, if you want to speak also, just unmute yourself. I'll still be reading it. Okay. Target, mind of the enemy commander. There is a common insistence in both cases on this aspect. So, mind of the enemy commander, the psyops, is there both in Mahabharata as well as in Art of War. Battle drills. they are specifically mentioned in Vayus in the Mahabharata and deal with combined arms operations. Cavalry came much later in China. Very important. Cavalry means correct. We had this Rath, or a cavalry means a armored weapons right now, armored carrier weapons. Currents. Espionage system. This seems equally developed in both eras. So in the era of Mahabharata as well as in the era of Sun Tzu. But the Mahabharata and Arthashastra provide far more elaborate details of intelligence organizations and operations. The Arthashastra talks of legals and illegals, spies trained to administer poison, etc. Insistence on surprise and deception. The Chinese emphasis is much greater, but it is not totally absent in the Indian epic. Once again, Krishna and Brihaspati and Ashwatthama can be cited. Administration and man management. This is equally stressed in both the epics, but greater details are available in Mahabharata and Arthashastra. So we are now talking about the similarities between Arthashastra, Mahabharata, and Sun Tzu's treatise. War as a last resort. This theme is more prevalent in the Indian school, which advocates graduated or flexible responses to cover diplomacy and covert operations. Sun Tzu also does Sun Tzu does not condone butchery for the sake of killing, but advocates superior strategy to subdue the enemy without fighting. Very interesting comparison here. So in Mahabharata, Krishna, Brihaspati, Ashwatthama are are talking to the enemy to how to avoid a war. Like, let's discuss what you want, what we want. Let's have an agreement not to fight a war, but fight a war with words, and let's see who wins. And you give and take, and you avoid a war. So the consequence of war is very important in Mahabharata because the war will destroy people's lives. It will People will get killed. You will have you will have maybe a famine because you will not have enough people to grow food. So human lives and human suffering is the outcome of war. So in Mahabharata, as we are dealing with the dharmic war, war is a last resort. We have to do a lot of other things before war is fought. But in Sun Tzu's case, he is hell bent on winning the war. That is very important. Winning the war is very important. And he advocates if you can win the war without fighting the enemy, go ahead and do it. But he is not considering the consequence of the war. Very important point that we noted is that in Mahabharata, war consequence, the destruction which takes place at war is considered as a not a very good option. So diplomacy is utilized not to win the war, but to avoid a war. But in Sun Tzu's case, he is saying you have to win by all means. If you can win without fighting, very good. If you cannot, you have to have a superior strategy of winning a war, even if it means killing hundreds and thousands of people. Balance. In overall balance, both schools of war appear equally matched, but for two glaring facts to the contrary. The Indian school deals with combined arms operations of coordinating four variable speed maneuver masses on the battlefield, while Chinese school deals with single arm alone. The Indian school at 1400 BCE seems to predate the Chinese by 1,000 years. At 5100 BCE, it would be ahead by almost 3,000 years, if that date is found to be correct. However, this conclusion is subject to validation of the actual age of Mahabharata. A much more accurate historical comparison is between Mauryan armies of Chandragupta and the Chinese armies of Sun Tzu period. The Indian forces and the state of the art are decidedly superior. The obvious superiority of Sun Tzu, however, lies in his explicit emphasis on surprise and deception as opposed to direct and frontal approach of the Indians. Krishna and a number of contemporary Indian acharyas, however, also tried to emphasize this aspect. The fact, however, is little known precisely because the influence of this school has been rather limited. The Mahabharata seems to be premised doctrinally on a paradigm based on the attrition as opposed to maneuver. The word attrition and maneuver is our military terms, opposed to maneuver. In places it places a heavy reliance on force force, head on engagements in which one side wears the other down by sheer attrition. So you fight a war for 18 days, and the side who suffers more casualty will say, "I'm not. I'm defeated. I will not fight anymore." So it's a war of attrition. How many you can kill of each other? So if they says, okay, we are losing too many people, you will say, you will raise a white flag and say we have lost. It is premised upon an annihilation and destruction of enemy in a set piece battle, usually in a flat, wide open battle area or plain, which permits coordinated application of four distinct maneuver masses: the chariots, the elephants, the cavalry, and the infantry. Very important in terms of geography of the place where you are fighting a war. China is does not have a lot of plains. China has deserts. China has mountains. It doesn't have the flat territory that in the Paletic plains provide. So we can see, correct. So they were actually doing cavalry and special forces, guerrilla warfare, because in a hilly terrain where you have mountains, jungle, guerrilla warfare is a much better strategy than fighting a full frontal general warfare. We have another half an hour. Nandi, anything? Rishi Agarwal?
Yeah, good.
Rishi? Yeah, okay. Shall I go ahead? I will read it and then we will have 10-15 minutes for audience interaction and questions.
Uh,
Yes.
just one point. I think the guerrilla warfare strategy was also used by the Marathas under Shivaji Maharaj in the Sahyadri Hills because that was a hilly terrain.
Yes. So that's what it is important is that, see, when you are fighting a war, the terrain plays a very important part in how you fight that war or how you fight the battle. So because in India, in Mahabharata, you had plains, so you could have chariots, you could have cavalry, you could have infantry. But in a hilly terrain, in a uneven terrain where you have jungles, rivers, mountains, it is foolish to have a chariot, have a cavalry, right? So it's very important. So it doesn't mean that the Chinese were incapable of having a cavalry, because it didn't make any sense in terms of terrain to have a cavalry. So that's very important. We need to understand that, okay, the Indians were far more advanced in terms of war technology. It also because of where they were situated. They were in a fighting up in plains, not in some jungles. We also might not have cavalry or four-armed war in case we were fighting in a hilly terrain or in a mountain terrain. We'll finish this page. Let me see. Okay, it's premise upon an annihilation and destruction of enemy in a set piece battle, usually in a flat, wide open battle area or plain, which permits the coordinated application of four distinct maneuver masses: the chariots, the elephants, the cavalry, and the infantry. So this ends the chapter. So we have read the chapter 9.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
So, as Mahabharata mentions about how war is supposed to take place in a plain field where not many people are harmed from of civilian category, people from civilians, they
Mm-hmm.
are not
Mm-hmm.
harmed because it's taking place in a designated ground called Yuddhabhumi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when
Yeah, the
you go
concept
through
concept of
Shinzu's
concept of Yuddha
Art of
Bhumi.
War, it will show
Mm-hmm.
how to burn civilian structures.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously. See, as we are discussing about it, there is no concept of morality in the Chinese way of fighting a war. It is only the primary purpose and objective of the treaties of Sun Tzu is to win the war. If you can win the war by not fighting, it's okay.
Mhm.
But if you cannot win the war by diplomacy, you will use whatever methods required to actually win the war.
Mhm.
Just hold on.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's
Yeah,
what. So this dharma does not exist in Chinese culture as such, okay? Because it's only a treatise on how to win a war, nothing else. Yeah, Abhay.
yeah. Regarding the cavalry, there is a very
Mm-hmm.
interesting two-part series that Abhijit Iyer Mitra had done on the Charvak podcast on
Yes.
why India lost to the Turkic invaders, and how it had to do with our obsession with cavalry, because we didn't have too many open field, as our uh, our land is more or less lush and green, while the people coming from Turkic lands had a lot of barren fields where they could rear horses much better. That, and because we did not focus on our strength, that was infantry, and we put all our eggs in the cavalry basket, we lost the wars against the Turkic invaders. So that was an interesting podcast on our obsession with cavalry and how it made us lose the wars.
Yeah. So so in this chapter also, General G.D. Bakshi actually mentions that in terms of strategy and in terms of strategy comparing the infantry and how infantry is used as a special forces as surprise and attack, that strategy for winning a war, see, it's very important for us to understand that for us war is not the like a end goal in a way. So, and that may have been like where you had we are talking about dharma, you're talking about duty, you're talking about the casualties of war. So that may have played a part in us not winning the wars that we should have won. But in that context, as a pure theory, in terms of winning a war, art of war is a superior theory. In terms of if you say if you want to win a war, if you say ask me, okay, Bhupendra, which tactic you would use? You would use the art of war, or whether you will choose the Mahabharata tactic, Mahabharata, no, not the Kautilya one. Okay, Mahabharata one. I would choose, if I want to win a war, I will choose art of war any given day because that is my primary objective. But the Indian way of looking at the war was not that okay, we are winning a war. So there is a lot dharma, duty, casualties, all things are considered while fighting a war, and that may have actually constrained our efforts to fighting a war. So there could be another reasons why this happened, but one reason from my perspective would be correct. We fought a war with a set of rules, and those rules we were obeying, and we were used to obeying the rules. Like you will not fight a war in the evening, you will not destroy crops, you will not harm women and children, But the Turkic invaders who came, they did not follow the rules, but we did follow the rules, and we lost. Rishi, you
So
were there
Turkey,
for. Yeah, go ahead. Abhay, go ahead.
so Turkic invaders are more in line with this art of war philosophy, if I may say, if I may conclude so.
Yes, yes, yes. You can say that because they have only one objective: to win the battle by any means possible. How many people they kill, how many women uh, get harmed, how many children, how many crops they destroy, doesn't really matter to them. But for us, it did matter. So if you remember, correct, I think correct, Somnath, correct. Then they help me on the this one. So
Uh-huh.
who was attacking Somnath, the general
The Ghazni, Muhammad Ghazni.
Ghazni, correct?
There
I
were
don't
lots of
remember.
attacks on, yeah, no, there were
Somnath,
lots of
Somnath.
attacks on Somnath, even Portuguese
Mm.
attacks. So, like, if you are considering the multiple attacks on Somnath temple, I think it was Ghazni, Muhammad Ghazni. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So correct. So in the when Ghazni came to attack Somnath, we repelled the attacks and then we let him go. He attacked one more time. We again captured him. We again defeated him. We have and let him go. That was our ethics of war. We fought war on ethics. The other side did not follow any ethics, and that may have been a reason why we lost at the end of the day. Abhay, Rishi, Nandi.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You have a point, I would say. But to be honest,
Mhm.
can we really go there the Turkic way or the art of war way where we end up harming the civilians just to win the war? Or do we follow the Mahabharata way where lives do matter where we don't harm civilians while we are in a war? So in such a situation, uh, what should we do? Which strategy? What strategy should we go? That's a question that needs to be asked.
See, if you see the Mahabharata wars and the events, you see Sri Krishna, Bhagwan Sri Krishna telling, like if you see the where you had Bhim and what was other Nandi, Bhim and Duryodhan,
Yeah, for
Bhim and
Duryodhan.
Bhim and
Uh-huh.
Bhim and Duryodhan fighting a Gada Yudh, and Duryodhan was having an unfair advantage by having like stone like strength on his upper body, and Bhim didn't had that option, so it was an unfair battle anyway. So in that sense, if the enemy is trying to win the war by unfair means, you should not follow the rules. And Krishna had mentioned to Bhim, strike him below the abdomen. Okay, and that was against the rules of the war. But rules were broken to win because the other side is not following the law. So if the other side is not following the ethics of war, why you should follow it?
Hmm.
It's it is stupidity. And even if you see, I think there is one special forces person. I forgot his name. He had mentioned in his one of the interviews. I forgot the person's name. Sorry for this. He mentioned that when you are in a battlefield, your only objective is to be alive, fight the battle, and win the battle. You do not win by following rules laid by the enemy. You create your own rules to win the battle,
Hmm.
and you will do whatever is required to win the battle. It means anything, because end of the day, love and war has no rules. Only the winner get to write the rules and how they won it. Those who lost, they will be dead, and they will not be remembered anymore, forgotten. So if you want to survive, you have to
Mm,
win the battle. Yeah, Rishi is there. Rishi, would you like to say something? You are there for a long time.
Namaskaram. Is my
Namaste.
voice okay?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Okay, okay. So amazing book and amazing book reading and amazing again the discussions over here. So what I wanted to share, it's just my personal opinion. You could please, all three of you could comment on it, and especially Navavimash, Dada could please comment on it a lot, a bit more. So my point of view is this, that Indian kings, when they used to fight the Turkic invaders, like when you gave the example, so they left them alone, right? So after winning the battles, they didn't means pursue them to kill them or annihilate them. So uh, I uh, it reminded me of an episode which I read in detail in Veer Vinod, uh, a great book, recommending for all. So in that, it talks about an episode after the first fall of Chittor by Alauddin Khilji. So the Sisodia Rajputs didn't have Chittor with them. So it took a couple of years. By the time Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq died, so Maharana Hammir, he took back Chittor. So at that time, when he took back Chittor, Muhammad bin Tughlaq attacked Mewar. So in that, though Muhammad bin Tughlaq had much more armed forces, what Maharana Hamid did was to attack him at night. So he deliberately attacked him at night and created confusion in the camp, leading to the um killing of Turkic soldiers, like the Turkic soldiers killed themselves in that. It was such a devastating attack. So what was unusual was, after that, Maharana Hamir took Muhammad bin Tughlaq as captive. So he kept him for, I think, a year in his jail in Chittor. What what he did was not kill Muhammad bin Tughlaq, but what was the approach was to take means heavy payment, indemnities. So this tactic was seen amongst many Indian rulers. What they did was never kill the enemy, but uh, make captives of them and make them pay heavily, uh, uh, like make yourself rich by keeping your enemies captive under you and make them pay for you. So this was something which I saw was a given policy by the Indian rulers. So I would like to know your comments on it. This it was a
Okay,
bit long.
understood. Yeah, no, it's very good. So anyway, you can just paste the books link. So the audience wants to know about read about the book, they can read it. We might read it in our stream as well, in our Bengali stream.
Y- Yes, yes, it will be amazing. It's in Hindi. It's an amazing book. I recommend to all of you. Of course, we can do the reading of it in our channel.
Yeah, yeah, we'll surely do that. Looks very interesting.
Who is the
So
author?
So the author of this book, I don't remember the author. I think Shamal Das ji. So this book was commissioned by the Mewar royal family, and it was written by him in 5 volumes, I believe. And it was written from official documents which were in the Mewar royal archives. So that was the.
yeah, okay. So coming back to your question. So the thing was that the Muslim invaders, okay, were coming, and they were actually plundering and breaking the rules of war, war ethics, time and time again. So, as it's mentioned, correct, if you make one mistake, it is silly. Okay. If you make one more mistake, it's bad. But if you repeat the mistake multiple times, you are an idiot. Okay. So when uh, Ghazni came and attacked Somnath, and they were looting temples, they were killing women, children, everybody. Okay, they were ransacking sacred places, which was not part of war ethics that we followed, the dharmic way of war. If that is taking place, why you would leave that enemy to come again and again attack you and loot your places of worship, break it, ransack it, kill women, children. For me, that is stupidity. If I can answer the question in that way, as also did by in Mahabharata wars. If the enemy is have an unfair advantage over you, you need to break the rules to make it a level playing field. Duryodhan had a stone like strength on his upper body, so he could not be defeated. And as a rule said that you can only attack the upper body via Gada. But Duryodhan disobeyed the rule by having an advantage over this. And that was not fair on Bhim. So Bhim had broken the rules to make it even playing field. Rishi, that makes sense.
Yes, yes, it of course makes sense, and it is also reflected like what I told you in that incident. Also, you can see Maharana Hamir. He knew that he had less forces against Muhammad bin Tughlaq. So what he did was uh, he broke the rules. He attacked at deep at night when everyone was sleeping at the camp. He attacked at that time. So he attacked at that time and created confusion within the ranks of the other forces and made it as such so that the other forces kill each other. So yes, of course, what you said is completely true, and it was also followed by when it was also followed by some of our rulers. It worked for them as well. Absolutely true.
Yeah, Abhay, you have anything to say to that? Anandi? And audience,
Mhm.
if you want to come and join and share your opinions, the link is there. Please come and join us if you want to share any your thoughts. Anandi, you are saying something?
So, so the weapons that are mentioned in Sun Tzu's war, that he says like iron and copper were like recently used in like fifth century. I think the book is
Hmm, hmm,
dated to that fifth century
hmm.
BC. But before that, there was no like complex weaponry system. Like even we have archaeological evidence of more complex weapons being available in India already.
Yeah. So in the book, in this specific chapter, the author mentions that use of iron as a material to create weapons was
Hmm.
1000 years predate Sun Tzu. So we had iron
Yeah, yeah.
technology 1000 years prior to Sun Tzu mentioning it.
Uh-huh.
And it means that like we were using iron prior to that as well, because it's not that they at that time it happened, because any
Hmm.
technology will take time to develop.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll now just go through this PPT and see what
Uh,
we have. Yeah, Abhay, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Um, so here in this incident that Rishi illustrated, we can see that some Hindu kings did have to cross the line and break the rules because of the nature of the enemy. But
Hmm.
I have a query: is there any instance in our history where an Indian king, especially a Hindu king, has sort of crossed the line with the civilians of the enemy? enemy kingdom, that they have harassed the civilians or killed the civilians, or in any way tortured the female population or children. Is there any such instance or example?
That I do not know of, but in war, see, in any war, war is a very dangerous and fair game. So there might have been few here and there which is not documented in histories as such. But generally, we Bharatiyas, we fought wars based on ethics and rules which we had created. So, and we don't see a lot of evidence against it.
Okay, okay.
So
Got it. I
may I
think there
speak?
won't be too many instances.
Yeah, yeah. Rishi, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Rishi,
on
go ahead.
the yeah. So on Abhay's query, uh, I'm reminded of two kings actually. So they didn't. Let me clarify. They didn't attack females as such, but what they did was completely destroy the establishment of the state. So one was Maharana Kumbha. What he did was after the Sultan of Nagaur, if I remember, when he broke his treaty with Maharana Kumbha and started making advancements towards Mewar. So what he did was he entered Nagaur and razed Nagaur to the ground, and made the made ma- looted the villages, and specifically, uh, I don't know if I should say this on this channel, but attacked some some places, some
Mm-hmm.
specific places. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
so he did that. He's very famous for doing that, and infamous for certain community, but he was very famous for doing that. And also uh, another one was, I think, Maharana.
Just a small interruption. Just a small one. Was it similar to what Shivaji Maharaj did in Tiruvannamalai?
It was similar to what Shivaji Maharaj did in Surat. Yes, it was similar to that, where he looted the whole place, and what he did more was to raise it to ground, to give a message to the Sultan that if he does this again, it will be much more worse than what happened over there. So that he did. Yes, I'm reminded of two. So only them I can speak of.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Okay, so now we'll go to the comment section. So we are at the end of our stream. Nandi, do you have you chosen any specific things we need to go through? We see a lot of comments and a lot of conversation going on, conversations. Okay, let me see what we have. And we also see we have, okay, let's read this last one, the combined arms operation. Indian School of Warfare, which we are talking about. So let's read this part. So, okay, what is the timeline of these warring times? Abhay, you are talking about the Chinese or the Mahabharata one? Which one?
I was asking about the Chinese when the six kingdoms were fighting against each other.
Yeah, it is mentioned as 300 BC. It is there in the chapter. I don't remember exactly, but it's a 200-year battle which they are having. So it is there in the
Okay, okay,
chapter. It is there in the chapter we were reading. Okay.
okay. Got it.
So let's read this one. This is important. Indian School of Warfare. The Indian military strategy focused on the coordination and synergy of the four distinct arms in the field, promoting a holistic approach to warfare. Very important word, holistic approach to warfare, where you take into consideration a lot of other things including how to win the war. In case of Sun Tzu, the only objective was to win the war by any means possible. It's not a holistic doctrine of warfare or tactic or strategy. Got it. Now let's go through few more of it. So we don't see a lot of questions.
Mhm.
Let's
Dada, I wanted to ask a question.
go ahead.
Yes, Dada. So, can we say that the branch in Indian knowledge system called Dhanur Veda, can we
Hmm.
call that as something akin to what Sun Tzu was, what Sun Tzu's art of war is, like an equivalent to that?
Uh, See, in Sun Tzu's you have infantry warfare. Okay, the conventional infantry and the special forces infantry. Okay, so and Dhanurveda was primarily used in the general infantry warfare, not as a special forces as such. So you can consider Dhanurveda as a conventional infantry warfare tool rather than something which is used in special forces or shock.
Oh, okay.
Because we see like people using.
I
Go ahead. Okay.
Okay, please complete your answer.
No, no,
I
I am
think you
done.
were saying
So
something. Please complete.
no, so Dhanurveda is something which was used as a conventional war armory, not something which was because the diplomacy was the like uh, other alternate ways of fighting a war or avoiding a war. So in terms of art of war, Dhanurveda would be the primary conventional way of fighting arms for infantry. Go ahead, Abhay.
Yeah, I see a question from Abhirzan Patel, which I have copied and pasted in private chat. It
Let me
says,
check that.
I
Hmm.
have a dilemma for I have a dilemma for you all. If the general's dharma is to win war, then why can't he go outside the laws of war since winning is the dharma? If the general does not win, then he did not do his dharma. That's what it says.
Hmm.
He's
Okay.
asking a question.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand. I can see. I already pasted in the chat itself. Okay, see, when we are seeing that in Indian way of fighting a war is a holistic approach to fighting a war. So there you follow ethics, you follow rules. Generally, you do that. So the ethics, the holistic way of fighting a war would mean that if you have to harm women, children, maybe you need to ransack a place of worship, okay, or you are going to burn the crops, and the Indian ethics, Indian ethical war would would not permit that thing happening. It is wrong or right, that's something I can't say because they were fighting it that time. So at that time and place the ethics were formulated, they were followed by everybody who were fighting it. So we cannot retrospectively say that okay, they were doing a wrong thing. Right now, the conditions are such, the enemy is such that you may choose to not to follow the rules. But we cannot say retrospectively that they should not have followed the rules at that time, because that time, the time, place, and circumstances were different than what we have today. So you cannot transplant this to right whatever happening right now or what happened previously. That's my answer, Abhijan.
I have a small question on this. Uh, if you look at the Geneva Convention of War, is it similar to the Dharmic principle of war? Because it has ethics in it. That is, how do you treat the prisoners of war and all that? Do you think it has some resemblance with our Dharmic ethics of war?
I think more than that. If you if you see the way the rules of war were framed when we were fighting a war, the Dharmic way of fighting a war, holistic war approach, our ethics were much more advanced than what we even have today. They are maybe more superior than Geneva Convention in a way because we were following that rule 3,000, 4,000 years before Geneva Convention came to arrive at that. If you see the World War, where millions died, cities were flattened, women, children, and with the Hiroshima nuclear bomb, you had destroyed the whole cities with everything put together.
Dada,
Hmm.
another disclaimer: don't use those words. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, okay, understood. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is that Geneva Convention took those rules which we were following 3,000 years ago. So they borrowed from us, and we should be given credit for that. Credit that they have taken from us. Yeah, Abhay.
Yeah, I mean that is what I was wondering about the resemblance of the Geneva Convention with our Dharmic principles of war. I think uh, when it comes to global universal values, I
Mm-hmm.
always say that our Dharmic view can contribute a lot to the global universal values. I think maybe the Universal Charter of Human Rights, the UN Charter of Human Rights, and the Geneva Conventions sort of is kind of what the dharmic view of the world would be. Maybe a toned down version of that due to Western influences, but I think that it has sort of some hue of dharmic principles that we follow.
See, one thing we have to remember is that in our way of fighting a war, we followed a process. The process was paramount rather than an individual. Okay. So we had we created this holistic way of fighting a war, and that was a process. So everybody followed the process, not the so any individual will have to follow the process, and that is very important for us to remember is that in current circumstances, we put too much emphasis on the integrity of the individual or the benevolence of the individual to actually follow the rules or frame the rules. So, winner who frames the rules in a way. So, humans will be doing a lot of bad things, and that is something part of human nature. So we make a very bad mistake of thinking that every human being is going to be good. He's going to be benevolent. And to do the bad thing is an exception. In my opinion, that is not the case. If a human is given enough incentives, he will do a lot of bad things, irrespective what he does, including war. So we need to set in place a process where the human has to follow the rules and create carrots and sticks policy for that to happen. Today, when we say dharmic principle is a process, not an individual driven approach. And that is one thing which actually I see as a, like in our dharmic way, we are putting too much faith on humans intentions, and that is something which is historically has proven us wrong. Like if we had taken care of Ghazni and eliminated him in war, we may not have the kind of invasions, the places of worship being ransacked, looted, and all the other bad things happening may not have happened if we had recognized that human beings by nature can also be very bad, and we need to take into account rather than thinking every human being is a benevolent creature and who has a good in his heart, and that cost us dearly in long run, isn't it? Abhay?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you to some extent because I believe principles do matter to a certain extent. Uh, because at the end of the day, the thing is, the incentives that you talked about, those incentives are also created by this huge human civilization. So some humans are actually creating those incentives who may be good or bad. So at the end of the day, uh, it's not just about incentives but also about human nature, because it is the human beings who are creating those incentives for the larger society. That's all.
I have a counter question to you. Okay. Do you think human beings, by instinct, by nature, are capable of doing harm?
Of course, they are.
Then, if that is
They
the
are
case,
capable of doing harm.
correct. If that is the case, then why we are assuming every human being is divine in nature?
But they are equally capable of doing good. That's the point. Not every human being wants to do harm. They are
But they are
equally
correct.
capable of doing
But they
good.
are capable of doing harm. So if Ghazni comes and ransacks Somnath, kills innocent people, okay, uh, takes them and sells them as slaves, okay, as slaves, then why we are considering that human being who's capable of doing something good?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That you have to treat Ghazni differently from, let's say, uh, an Indian king from a neighboring kingdom. Let's say an Indian king would have invaded your territory, who was from the neighboring kingdom, has to be treated differently from Ghazni. I think it's the lack of understanding of the enemy here, which is the problem.
And does that come from our worldview of dharmic lens, that our dharmic lens has given us less shatru bodh than what we would have had if we had not looked at the enemy from a dharmic lens.
To be honest, we have the culture of Purva Paksha, doing the
Hmm.
that is understanding the enemy. I think our kings did not live up to it, live up to the standard. We became intellectually very isolationist, which
Hmm.
cost us dear. That's what I think.
Okay. Anybody has any other concluding remarks you want to make?
Yes, so I want to make this remark. So, just wanted to confirm it from you. So, we will be reading this book weekly, right? This amazing book, G.D. Bakshi sir.
Uh, yes. So we will be reading it once in a week at least.
Okay, amazing. So, I wanted to, I had searched this, so I wanted to keep it as a surprise. So, I wasn't talking, which is why at the beginning. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is from an amazing source. It's
Mm-hmm.
from Vasishti Dhanurveda Samhita. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so in that, he has an amazing point of view. So I will just say this pithy sentence in Sanskrit, and I also translate it. I would like to know your views on it, and we can maybe that will be my concluding remark. So let me start. Apurne
Go ahead.
Shatru Samagri Purne Vaishya Balam Tatha Kurute Purna Sattvastho Jayatyeko Vasundharam. So this is the shloka, and let me translate it. It is in Hindi. Can I speak in it? Can I speak it in Hindi over here?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, okay, okay. So it says um, शत्रु की सामग्री अपूर्ण हो और अपनी सामग्री पूर्ण में हो स्थित हो ऐसा एक भी योद्धा सारी वसुधा को जीत जाता है. So his it's a sutra of his that the Shatru must have less amounts of samagri, and you must
Mm-hmm.
have always more than your Shatru has. And one who does have that, he shall win the whole of earth. So that is one of his sutra or teaching as far as the war is concerned. So would like to know your views of this, and this is my conclusion. Thank you so much, Dada.
Thank you, Rishi. Okay, so this remark I'll not give right now because I don't have a lot of information on that. I'll keep that as a note. I'll start the next reading of this book. I'll keep note of this specific sutra, and I'll get back to you next stream when we start. I'll address because right now I do not have the proper information on this, so I'll not like to comment right now. Let me go and read it, understand it, and then I will give an answer. Okay?
Okay, okay,
Dada,
okay.
I have
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
suggestion. We
Yeah,
should
go ahead.
also read chapters that from Arthashastra that regards
Mm-hmm.
to war, such as chapter 10 that's relating to war, and chapter 9 that says the work of an invader. So we should read both of these chapters with this reading.
Sure. Sure. I think it's a very good suggestion from Nandi. So what we will do is next week when we schedule our book reading session. So we will have this book by Mr. G.D. Bakshi and also Arthashastra by Shama Shastri's translation. So we will be combining these to create a holistic reading approach. So Nandi, keep that thing in our pipeline. So we will plan it
Mhm.
and we will schedule accordingly. So to all the audience, we are about to end the session. So do join us. Do subscribe to our channel. Turn on the notification so that whenever we schedule a new stream on this book reading session, also on the author interviews, you will get the notification. And once again, in the screen, you can see the web page, the book, Indian Strategic Culture, the Mahabharata, and the Kautilyan Ways of War by Mr. G.D. Bakshi. So you can buy the book. Right now, it is out of stock in Garuda, but you might get the book also in Amazon. So whenever you get a chance, this is amazing book written by a very talented and patriotic author, Mr. G.D. Bakshi. He has immense experience, immense knowledge on Indian warfare, ancient warfare, and current warfare. So go ahead, read his books, read his other books as well, read this book as well, buy the book, and we will see you next time. And before I sign off again, I'll request everybody to actually, if you would like to buy or were to collect this collectible painting, digital painting, and also the book, please send us an email. Shortly, we are going to start shipping these items to people who are interested. Do fill out the form itself or send us an email. We will reply back to you. But because there might some time to actually, because it's a handwritten, hand-drawn painting, digital art, it might take some time for it to get delivered to people. So on that note, thank you everybody. Thank you Abhay. Thank you the audience. Thank you Rishi. Thank you Nandi for helping us on this team. and sharing your opinions. So thank you. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram. Bye bye.
Thank you. Jai Shri Ram.
Thank you, everybody.
Jai Shri Ram.